The stories we tell and hold dear tell us which we value the most. If that's true, then a lot can be told about Jesus' values and how we should view our lives here on earth while looking at the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000. As a matter of fact, the story appears 6 times in 4 Gospels. Clearly, the writers of the Gospels wanted us to pay attention to this particular story, because this story tells of a true reality. Jesus cared about people's bodies. When I was first out of college, my roommate and I fell into hard times. We were broke, like broke, like counting out change to make the water bill broke. We were struggling to survive, and we weren't quite sure how to make ends meet. And let me tell you, it is hard to focus on those big questions of life after death, the nature of the Almighty, and the general condition of our souls when the question you face is, where's your next meal going to come from? According to this story, Jesus agrees. The version in Mark says that Jesus, after preaching, healing, and ministering to folks, the disciples tell Jesus to send the people away so they can get something to eat. To which Jesus replies, "You feed them." To which they say, that's impossible. Do you know how much that will cost? So Jesus sits down with the only food they can find, 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, and feeds each and every single person. I like what Dr. Mike Graves writes about this story, that while we might concentrate on the historicity of the story and attempt to defend it or debunk it, we instead take the story and learn from it. What's the point of this miracle story? What does this story say about Jesus? What does this miracle tell us about life here on earth? And, as Dr. Grave writes, this story tells us that Jesus' vision for the one wild and precious life that we are living is to enjoy good food, but also make sure that's true for everyone, not just the rich. A church I was associated with several years ago hosted a food pantry at the church. It wasn't much, as we constituted as an emergency food pantry specifically. We would provide cereal, some canned goods, some eggs and milk, basic staples you would need just to get by. It wasn't meant to last long, just a week or two, but simply to make sure folks could make it until their next round of food stamps or the next time they're allowed to go to the big food bank in town. All told, they would serve about 10 to 15 families a week, anywhere from 500 to 800 a year. What was really remarkable to me is that this was done out of this one church without financial assistance from any other agency. And I remember asking one of the gentlemen in charge of it, "What made you all decide to do this?" And he told me, "Well, we saw a need. We heard about folks needing more than what they were getting, and we wanted to step up and help. And if we aren't going to do it, then who will?" Soren Kierkegaard declared that Jesus wants followers, not admirers. The biggest difference in this is taking seriously the call we have to follow Jesus and actually do the teachings that Christ calls us to do. It isn't complicated. We are called to feed the hungry because that's what Jesus did. It doesn't take a seminary degree or some kind of biblical interpretation genius to figure out that Jesus wants and cares for people who don't have enough to eat. Our story in Mark is proof of that. But it isn't just in the feeding of people that proves Jesus is concerned with our physical needs. Because if you read the Gospels, there is story after story of Jesus also healing people. Now, those types of stories always give us a little pause. Because Christianity, religion, these are things of the mind and of the soul, right? We think about our spirituality, but it isn't very often we are invited to physically embody our spirituality. It's hard to have language for how to do that, isn't it? But as theologian Greg Carey notes, bad things happen whenever Christians forget that bodies matter. We diminish our ability to speak in compelling ways about childhood, sexuality, labor, aging, and disability. We forfeit the meaning of love. Just like Jesus' call to fill empty stomachs, Jesus was all about making sure folks had their physical ailments healed. But while we might rush to question, how is this possible? Did it actually happen? Maybe the more important question is, what's the point? For example, when Jesus heals a man on the Sabbath, despite the teaching not to do so, Jesus is telling us about our priorities in life. Maybe when a woman who is constantly bleeding reaches out to touch the hem of Jesus' cloak and is healed, it is more about Jesus recognizing her humanity and calling her daughter when so many others have dismissed her because of her condition. Maybe his healing through touching a leper who has been marginalized by society. Maybe that says more about our need to welcome back everyone into society. That it doesn't matter the state of one's physical condition, all matter to God. Through both feeding people and healing people, Christ shows that making people whole matters. That life on this earth matters. That people's physical needs are important to God and they should be taken care of. But also it proves that Jesus cares about your physical needs also. Again, Dr. Graves tells the story of his friend Jim Gordon being told by his doctor that when his doctor tells folks to change their lifestyle after something as serious as a heart attack, and add in more exercise, a better diet, only 1 in 7 actually do so. We should care more about our physical bodies and our physical needs. We should eat better, exercise, get enough rest, and see a therapist to help with our mental health. Those things matter to God. But they don't just matter to God when we talk about ourselves. God cares about the physical needs of everyone around us as well. So we should care. We should serve. We should make sure everyone has what they need. So take part in feeding the hungry. Help folks find healing, whether from physical ailments or simply by uplifting their spirits. And for goodness sakes, contribute to making others whole. That is what it means to live a wild and precious life.